This video is all about how to water the garden. Now that might seem like a no-brainer, but trust me, a lot of people get it wrong, and it's also a question a lot of people ask. I'm going to teach you how to water the garden the easiest and the best way, and I'll tell you the 5 key mistakes that you really should be avoiding. Before we get into it, the only thing I'm going to ask you to do today is click that subscribe button and the like button. I run garden tours every month here in Melbourne, Australia. If you like that sort of content, you don't want to miss out. The first mistake people make is they water the plants rather than the soil. There's actually no benefit in watering the leaves. The plants cannot absorb water through their leaves, it just sits on top. And in a lot of cases, it will actually make your plants more susceptible to fungal diseases, especially with things like tomatoes. Watering the leaves can really harm your plants. A much better option is to water underneath the leaves and just water the soil. Plants will absorb water through their roots, which is why the only bit that needs to get wet is under here. The next mistake people make is they don't water their plants deep enough. They might give them a bit of a sprinkle and make that soil nice and wet and leave it at that. But here's the thing, roots are constantly reaching for water and nutrients. So if they're getting water just on the surface layers of the soil, they will not grow any deeper than that. If you're watering really deeply and a little bit less frequently, they're going to be reaching down to get to where the water is. Now, there are a number of benefits to that. One is when you have windy days like this and the weather gets really crappy, they're less likely to be damaged in the wind because they've got that really solid foundation. The other benefit is if there are a number of dry days and for whatever reason you haven't been able to get out and water the garden, they'll do much better in those tougher conditions because while they might not be getting any water from around the surface, their roots down the bottom are getting the water that hasn't yet dried out. So how often should you be watering? Some people make the mistake of not watering enough, others make the mistake of watering too much. In the summer, on hot days, I will water every day. In the winter, I'll sometimes go a couple of weeks without watering. One thing I will always do is check the soil. I'll do the thumb test or the finger test, whichever you'd prefer. I'll stick a finger in about that much, about up to my first or second knuckle, and just feel to make sure there's water just under the surface. If there's not, give it a water. One way to prevent having to worry about that is to get one of these food cube wicking beds where you actually water them from the bottom, and you can then go up to a couple of weeks without watering your garden at all. Something like this not only encourages those really deep, strong roots, but it also saves you a lot of time and hassle in the garden. If you're interested in checking these out, I'll put a link in my description and a little thing up the top of the screen now. If you can see it, you can also click on that one. The next big mistake is something a lot of new gardeners make is not thinking about drainage. If you're using a container of any kind that does not have holes at the bottom, your plants will drown. The water will not be able to get out the bottom and the whole thing will fill up and it'll be a total disaster. So you need drainage holes if using a pot, and if you're using a garden bed, you need to make sure you've got well draining soil. Before you even turn your hose on, you want to make sure it's on the right setting. Something like this can damage your plants. Something like this can make everything wet and won't do a particularly good job of getting that really deep soil moisture that is required. I like to use the shower setting because it's gentle, does a good job. Then again, if you want to be a bit of a lazy genius, you don't have time to water frequently, I highly recommend setting up an automatic watering system. I've put together a whole video showing you exactly how to do that, what you can buy from your hardware store. And it is super easy, even if you're not particularly handy like me. I will put that link in the description too, and I will put that video at the end. So you should be able to just click on it when this finishes. One final reminder, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our next full garden tour. They are uploaded every month.